Thanks so much. Well, I wanted to go ahead and take a moment to introduce myself because I am taking the place of Vanilla tonight, who is having a power outage issue right now with some tropical storms and weather issues in her area. So I am Hunter Tharp, and I'm one of our elevated instructors, and I am the director of operations for Season of Ink. And then I'm, in addition to that, an ELA teacher here in North Carolina. And I've been so fortunate to have a great career so far for over 5 years here across our state. And I'm currently ranked first in North Carolina for student reading and writing growth, thanks to the hard work of our students and some of the curriculum strategies that I've built in. I've been able to turn our school's ELA department from one of the lowest in our state to first in our state over the course of 4 years. And beyond that, I'm so passionate about unlocking the potential of every student. Every single one of your students have a really unique ability to craft powerful stories. And our goal is to help them unlock that. And so I wanted to make sure that you knew this up front about me, to know that this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm passionate about. And I'm so lucky to be here and share some of this with you. So, two things that we always support students with in writing, and they're both equally important for your students and their future and the things that they will need to be successful. I'm going to dive into analytical writing first and share some of the ways that this is important, and couple it with some strategies that you can currently use to help your students with their writing pieces. And you can also use this to help with some of the projects that your students are doing at their schools, even if they're not currently working on a competition submission. So first off, for our analytical writing pieces, I want you to think in terms of writing to convince someone of a strong argument that you believe in. And so this is often used to make sure that you can derive results and make sure that the people reading your work understand both your logic and your reasoning behind your thoughts. This has a wide application, even if your students are not currently submitting something for a competition, which we hope they will. But this skill is transferable. This will help your students, whether they are writing essays in school or whether they are crafting some reports for some STEM research that they're part of. Or maybe they're creating pitch decks because they're part of a business or an entrepreneurial venture. Analytical writing is something that is crucial for every field and every area. And I want to make sure that your students are prepared to deal with that nuance. Another thing that analytical writing is extremely important for is to build for college admissions. So whenever a student begins their journey toward college admission when they're in their junior and senior years of high school, not only will they be crafting their essays, but their essays are written, especially their supplemental essays, to convince colleges of the things that they have done and how meaningful they are. Analytical writing is one of the keys that unlocks that. Of course, we want to tell a story with their college applications like we do with creative writing. But if a student learns how to write analytically, especially at a younger age, even in middle school and early high school, when they get to their college essays, they'll be able to understand how to convince colleges that they deserve a spot in their freshman class. So analytical writing at its core is helping students convince others of something that they believe in, of something that they find to be powerful and persuasive, even if that is something about themselves. So one of the things that we always support students with is supporting their argument with evidence from the text or from whatever the piece might be that they are analyzing. This is an actionable strategy that you can take away from our session tonight to support your students during their competition preparation. You can support them with this for schoolwork. It has a broad application. So the first thing that we do after a student has crafted a really strong argument is how they use their evidence, not as a means of just reporting, but as a means of analyzing and convincing. So one of the most common mistakes that we notice students share is that they just drop their textual evidence, like you see here, in the very first bullet point. So in this case, they might declare that freedom is important from a piece that they're analyzing. And this is how a lot of schools actually teach students to write analytically. But what we found through our years of research and supporting students for competitions is that students who win competitions don't just use quotes, they almost weaponize them to ensure that their argument is made in the most strong, powerful way that extends the use of their quote in an even more unique manner. So as you can see here in this example, the student is still utilizing the same quote to support their evidence, but they're understanding that it is not just what it says on face value. They're arguing how it's a belief, it's a warning, and that liberty comes with a cost. So this is just one excerpt from a student's writing sample, but you can see here that they're taking this quote and they're connecting it to the core idea of freedom. And when a judge at a competition is analyzing the student's work, I promise 10 times out of 10, this student will win versus a student who uses a more um, basic, lower level quote without any type of analysis. So one of the things that we try to do in our boot camps is to make sure that the quote matters and that the student who is using that quote comes across as like a voice of authority on that topic. Students who write with authority win competitions. This is one of our favorite boot camp drills, actually. When we are in our analytical writing boot camps, we help students use quotes like these. In fact, for the boot camp that I just finished teaching earlier today, our students were able to utilize all of the evidence that they've collected over the course of the boot camp and turn those quotes into really powerful statements that analyze like a deeper theme or a deeper topic. And so that's definitely something that that students do in our boot camps that they will do quite often to surely help them extend their writing. Um, the other thing that we want to do is support our students in their strategies and their preparation for a wide range of competitions. And so students for analytical writing typically submit to the John Locke essay competition. And so, of course, we're not affiliated, just to be clear, with the John Locke essay competition, but our students have placed in the John Locke essay competition for years now. And our students have won multiple awards through their work. And so we have a deep understanding of that. And I wanted to share a little bit of insight about that to help your students right now if they're currently preparing for the John Locke competition. I know that there's just an issue out. Maybe they're going to be preparing, even if it's not till next year. This is something that they can already be thinking about and preparing a great strategy for. Students who are able to write award-winning John Locke essays are often ones who not just answer a prompt. That's one thing that we really hone in with our analytical writing students. They should not just answer it, but they should challenge the assumptions and build really airtight arguments around the prompt's main theme. But they should do more than just that. They're analyzing so many different trends, philosophical, political, economic trends. If you are a student on here, if you're a parent on here supporting your student, one of the best things that you can do right now to help your students with the John Locke competition is to ensure that their essay or their essay idea has one of these three themes looped in to show a deeper level of nuance. And that will instantly improve their score on the rubric that the John Locke essays are evaluated on. And during our boot camps, we use an analytical writing rubric when we are supporting students with their writing, and it's modeled after the John Locke rubric. Of course, it's our own variation of it because we've learned techniques and strategies over the years that support students in understanding how to reach the level that's needed to win a John Locke essay. But we understand enough of the rubric to make sure that students have a clear pathway and a guide and support to reach it. So our students not only are just learning to think more deeply and to write more analytically, but they learn these skills and more to win national and international contests, which beyond just the recognition for their amazing achievements, helps enhance their resume and deepen their resume for colleges and careers of the future. And so this is a really key thing that we try to emphasize in every analytical writing boot camp that we offer. So that is sort of the analytical side of what we offer through Elevated and College Ninja. I want to dive now into creative writing, which is the other side of this, which is just as important, quite frankly. Creative writing to me is about giving students a way to have voice and originality and express ideas in a way that they may not otherwise be able to through analytical writing. It's about making stories that are rich and express their full personalities. It allows them to have a personal brand. In fact, we have students who go through the creative writing process who can publish their own stories. They are that good. And so when students are learning the core strategies in our creative writing boot camp, one of the things that we really reiterate to them and that you can do right now if you're working on a creative writing story is to think deeply about how readers can feel what you are writing. Creative writing is about the expression of emotion. If you think about the favorite book you've ever read, or the most compelling movie you've ever watched, those are all creative outlets, and those stand out because we feel a deep sense of emotion when we view them or when we read them. And our students in our creative writing boot camp master that skill. They just don't learn about it, they master it and make it their own. And the way that they do this is through their own writing supports that we've built in that we'll get to more in just a second. But the core takeaway from our creative writing boot camps is a creative writing piece that is unforgettable. And students who write in an unforgettable manner win competitions. They win awards at their schools. And quite frankly, they become more well rounded as a writer so that no matter what they write in the future, whether it's for a competition or not, it's instantly 2 to 3 times better because they've learned these foundational creative writing skills that is very hard to replicate elsewhere. One of the things that we want to reiterate to our students and our parents tonight who are joining us for this lecture is the importance of surprise and engagement in creative writing. This is actually one of the top skills that we learn in week 2 of our creative writing boot camp. And so this is just a sample of it, but it's also, in my opinion, one of the top ways that we can support students in getting their writing that they're working on right now better with the fewest amount of changes. So whenever we're thinking of our creative writing, thinking again of the best book you've ever read or the best movie you've ever watched, there's always some sort of twist. There's a contradiction, there is an emotional whiplash. There's something, frankly, that you wouldn't see coming. And so when students are writing creatively, they should always attempt to end a sentence at when they are at that turning point in their story with a completely unexpected emotional direction. So, for example, in this piece that a student wrote that I supported myself, this student won a gold key in the Scholastic competition a couple of years ago, and she gave me permission to use this tonight with you. So I definitely appreciate that. But she shared how, the gentleman in the story had kissed someone's cheek, picked up his bags, and he left, thinking that this man was just going to leave his home and go to work. But it ends with a quick turn or a quick twist within the exact same sentence for good. That instantly made her writing that much more engaging because no one expected that. The plot line of the story to that point was relatively basic, it was relatively straightforward, and frankly, it was relatively comforting to the reader. This immediately inserted so much tension into the writing that this student's story took a twist that kept the reader engaged. One of the things that, if you're writing creatively right now, that I encourage you to do tonight is to look at your writing and figure out ways that you can analyze each sentence individually for ways to make it more engaging through surprise, through unexpected twist. That's how you're going to keep your reader engaged. And so this is one of our top strategies, but it's just one of our strategies that we teach in our in our creative writing boot camps. This is in week 2 of the creative writing boot camp, but there are so many strategies before and after this one that will really help students that we would love to talk more about during the boot camp. But I encourage you tonight, if you're working on a creative piece, to go and implement this as quickly as you can. Um, so I wanted to I'm sorry, I skipped way ahead. I wanted to share now with creative writing a really common competition I just talked about, the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. And so the student sample that we just analyzed on the previous slide was someone who had won a gold key in the Scholastic Writing competition. And these are quite competitive. They become more popular each year. And students who are winning silver keys and gold keys at the Scholastic competition are ones who don't just have a good idea, because as blunt as this may sound, great ideas are frankly not award winning anymore. And students need an extra push of precision and power and polish if they're truly going to get their writing to a level that sticks and that wins awards. So they are going to help students, and students need to in their writing hook a reader very quickly. And then they need to hold that reader's attention through vivid scenes, emotional depth, thinking about the elements of surprise that we just mentioned on the previous screen that leads into tension and everything that makes a story so powerful that you sit on the edge of your seat as you're reading it. Those are the skills that separate students who have great stories from the students who have great stories and gold keys to back them up. And so these are really foundational skills that seem quite simple, but when implemented correctly, can result in many, many national and international awards. Students who write creatively sometimes fall into a trap of writing from their heart and writing about things that they're passionate about. And in fact, they should be doing that, but that needs to be coupled with vivid imagery and emotional depth and revision that can only come through really critical one-on-one support and mentorship. And that's one of the things that we utilize in our boot camps to support students. So, and we've had many of our students, in fact, just this year, walk away from the Scholastic issue with silver keys and gold keys and things of that nature. I also wanted to introduce you to another competition opportunity that was just launched within our elevated ecosystem that is quite different from the other two, but I think offers something that is even more valuable to our students. So, like the Scholastic and the John Locke competition, students can submit their essays to the Season of Ink issue that is currently running, and they will be eligible to win prizes, cash prizes even, for their work. We have an 18-point rubric that we utilize to analyze student work and ensure that they are reaching the levels that's needed for truly award-winning competition. But we take it one step further. Our students don't just get their essay returned to them with either a placement that they had won or a message that they had lost, like other competitions do. Our students have essays and stories returned to them with one-on-one, personalized, unique feedback from a published author or Ivy League graduate who is an expert in their field to support their continued growth of that story. In fact, the Season of Ink is one of the only writing competitions where students receive actionable feedback from people who are at the top of their fields to ensure that their writing is not just good, even if they won, but that they know how to make it even better. Because writing is inherently an iterative process. There's no way that a student can write something one time and be done with it. It requires a lot of revision and support to take it even further. And this matters to students because it provides confidence. I'm sure that there are some students right now who feel confused and lost as to where they need to take their story next. Or maybe they've never won a competition before and they continually feel like that there's not even a point in trying. But the Season of Ink offers students an opportunity to receive the feedback that they need that's individualized to them so that they're better prepared for future contest assignments and essays. In fact, we have many students who submit to the Season of Ink, utilize feedback from our judges, make their writing even better, and then submit to the Scholastic competition or the John Locke competition. And so we want to make sure that these students are prepared for this, and we offer now both a creative writing and an analytical writing category for our students to submit their stories to. The real reward, though, again, is that students become a more powerful writer because they're given a roadmap that lets them see what they need to do for their essay to make it even better. The website for this is at the very bottom of your screen right now at seasonofinc.org. And this is the site that you'll use if your student is interested in submitting to the contest. Excuse me, issue 6 will be launching in just days. We just released the feedback for issue 5 to our students. We've announced who the winners were, and their stories will be published on our Season of Ink website, along with their piece. So students will be receiving their feedback within days of the competition ending, and the winners being announced so that they can continue revising their piece, whether they've won our competition or not. In fact, we've had many students take the judges' feedback and submit to the next issue of Season of Ink because they cared that deeply about their feedback. We offer innovative partnerships with Season of Ink as well. In fact, one of the partnerships that we most recently offered was through the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And our students were able to, I'm sorry, I just saw a question. Yes, absolutely. One essay can be submitted to both Season of Ink and Scholastic, of course. Yes. Um, but a partnership that we had was through the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where our Season of Ink winners had their work edited by um, students within the Department of Creative Writing under the mentorship and guidance of a English professor and a creative writing professor. And their work was published through unique Chapel Hill websites. And so that was just one partnership that we had. We were always adding more. And that's just one example that you can utilize to support your students if they're interested in this competition. So just wanted to let you guys know about that. And the other options that we have to support your students in achieving the competition goals of their dreams. We have running in the next several weeks creative writing and analytical writing boot camps that are organized by rigor and depth. So for our creative writing courses, we have a 100, 200, and 400 level course, so an intro and then an intermediate course where students learn basic and then more advanced skills of creative writing in 100 and 200. Creative Writing 400 is the advanced course, and it's formatted as a workshop model. So students who have already won awards and they are interested in doing extremely nuanced, in-depth work on really advanced ideas would join that boot camp and receive one-on-one support for that story. We're also proud to be launching a poetry-focused creative writing workshop that will be beginning on August the 10th, that one of our tutors will be running. And it's an amazing course that focuses just on students who are interested in writing poetry and taking their poetry from a basic level to an award-winning level in just a matter of 2 weeks throughout the course of that boot camp. And then for analytical writing, we have a 100 level and a 200 level course. In fact, I'll be teaching our analytical writing 200 course. It's beginning this upcoming week. And both of these courses are amazing opportunities for your students to learn how to craft powerful arguments and how to take those arguments into essays that will win awards eventually. The 100 level course covers the most basic skills that students need for analytical writing, and the 200 level course takes those and goes even more in depth with them. So students in analytical writing 100 will learn how their claims should be structured and how to integrate evidence and that sort of thing. Analytical writing 200 students, though, will learn how to craft a unique writing style within the framework of analytical writing. They'll be able to launch into stylistic upgrades with their writing in the 200 level course. So it's a really unique opportunity for students as well. Iris, to answer your question about determination of level, it really depends on where your student is currently at, both in terms of their grade and their level of writing comfort. I recommend that you send some of your essays to me. I'm going to actually type my email in the chat right now for everyone. And if you want me to, or if you want to send a writing sample to that email, I'll be glad to look it over and recommend a level for your student. But in general, for everyone, if your student is feeling a little bit more uncomfortable with writing, or maybe they've never written anything that they have done more than a school assignment with, analytical writing 100 might be a good place to start, or creative writing 100 might be a good place for them to start. However, if your student is feeling a little bit more comfortable with writing, maybe that they've submitted to the Scholastic competition, and they feel pretty good with writing, but they know that there's some more work that can be done, then maybe creative writing 200 would be a good place for them to start because they've had that experience. Likewise, with analytical writing 200, if a student feels like that they can craft a strong argument, but they're not quite sure how to deeply analyze evidence, or maybe they're not quite sure how to upgrade their syntax or their diction within individual sentences to take their writing from great to extraordinary, analytical writing 200 would be a good place for them to start. One thing that I will tell you for my analytical writing 200 level course is that I customize the pacing of it based on the individual student needs. So, for example, if a student signs up for analytical writing 200 and I notice that they need additional support because there's a concept that they might not understand, then I will loop in and add additional resources for that student. That is, again, totally free of charge. It's included within the pricing just because that student deserves that level of support. And then in the future, we have more analytical writing options that are advanced that run earlier in the summer. But these are the courses that are currently offered and ongoing and will continue to be offered into the rest of the summer months into August. So I want to talk a little bit more about these because I understand that this is a commitment, and I want to explain the structure of these camps so that you have a really clear idea of what they look like, what your students will get from them, and what their benefits are, and some results that we've achieved from our students. Our boot camps are unique, and I think that they're one of the only boot camps that are offered throughout the summer from any organization that follows such a dedicated format. As someone who has turned around the English department at the school that I've worked at, and it's currently ranked first in my state, I know that this curriculum works for students. I've helped craft it, and I've helped ensure that it meets what students need to become the best readers and writers possible. So over the course of 2 weeks, students will participate in a 6-session curriculum. This session will feature a small class size so your students can receive personalized coaching. In fact, students who are signing up for our boot camps now have a cap of, I believe, 8 students, and Anne will have those logistical details at the end. But I believe it's 8 students capped, and our classes are filling up. And so I encourage you to enroll if you're interested. But we keep the classes small because our students do best when they have personalized support. And so there will never be a time during a boot camp that your student has a question or needs additional support from their teacher that goes unanswered. Whereas other summer camps that have 20 or 30 students in a session, it's extremely tough for the student to receive the personalized support that they need to elevate their writing to award-winning level. One of the other really unique things about our boot camp is that our students receive line by line feedback that I'll show you an example of in just a minute on every writing sample that they upload for homework. Each one of the boot camps will end with a launch into the next session. And between those two sessions, students will be working on some writing samples that they will upload to our technology portal that the teacher will see and provide line by line feedback on. So, in addition to students receiving just the boot camp instruction, students will be receiving support on their writing and individualized feedback on their writing, in addition to the coaching that they'll receive during the class. Every single one of our boot camps taught by Ivy League graduates, from professional writers to award winning educators like me, because we know that our students deserve that kind of support to really take their writing to the level that we know that they're capable of. And that's what I want to reiterate above all else from this portion of our presentation tonight, is that students do best when they feel supported, and in an area where they can boost their confidence. We want our students to walk away from the boot camp not only with a stellar idea or essay for a writing competition, but we want them to feel confident that no matter what they write, whether that is a year from now, 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, that they've understood these enduring skills that they'll learn in our boot camps to make that possible. Um, so we have certainly a lot of things that we offer, but I do want to make a promise that our boot camps are not just going to improve your students' writing, but truly transform it. Students who leave our boot camps will have these skills that they need to write with clarity and purpose and flair, the things that are needed to stand out in an ever competitive college admissions and job market, but they will also stand out for creative writing competitions, and like the Scholastic, like the Season of Ink. They will understand what their personal writing style is, and that boosts their confidence. They will have a writing style that they can walk away with by the end of our boot camp to express any of the thoughts that they have with power that is convincing to anyone who reads their writing. And so that is what we commit to offering your students who enroll in our boot camp. And I want to make sure that they understand that they're not just walking away from another class or another video class. They're walking away with one-on-one support from a teacher that's committed to making sure they have skills that they will use for years to come. So it's not just something that the students will use for the 2 weeks. It's an investment for years that will benefit them decades into the future. The other thing that I wanted to show you that we promise as well, and this in fact was just student work that I was editing today from one of my boot camps. So this student crafted an analytical writing paragraph around a text that we had read in class. And as you can see here, literally every student receives feedback on every sentence that they write through this technology portal. Once students upload their homework, I read their text, or excuse me, I read their writing 2 to 3 times, and then I will go in and look at each sentence individually and offer them some insight. Not just insight to make their writing better, but to praise what they're currently doing well. As you can see here for this student's writing, I told him that it was a powerful insight, but he might make this contrast sharper and tell him how he can compare the difference in how this character views himself versus others. And I even give students a template that they can use to insert their own writing, sort of like a sentence starter to implement my feedback. So not only is the student's feedback on every sentence and includes things that they're doing well and things that they could improve, they're given a roadmap to implement this feedback to make their writing even better. And this happens with every piece of feedback that students receive. So I think this is one of the things that really sets our boot camps apart, is that students are not just in class learning from a really qualified instructor, they're also receiving feedback in addition to the things that they're learning in class. So essentially, they're not just taking a boot camp, they're getting multiple rounds of essay editing and writing support on top of that when they're not in class. So this is just one of the things that will really help your students' writing become from what it is now to award winning over time. So what does our class actually look like? So within the individual boot camp, they happen 60 minutes and they happen, oh, and I apologize, this was actually they meet 3 times per week. This was from our winter boot camps. Let me fix that. I apologize. Our summer boot camps are obviously a little bit different due to the time constraints we have with the approaching school year. So our students will meet over the course of 2 weeks. And so that's 3 sessions per week. And students will be learning a mix of techniques within the boot camp. They will receive essentially at the beginning of the class session, at the beginning, I would say like the first 20 to 30 minutes of that hour, direct instruction on these strategies that will help their writing go from great to extraordinary. And then, most critically, they have an opportunity within the class itself to practice this writing skill live with support and personalized coaching from the teacher. In fact, I have a sample that I pulled to show you guys tonight. This is actually from the boot camp that I just finished teaching students today. And as you can see here, students were uploading their writing samples and they were receiving support, not just from students practicing with their peer review, but ways for me to provide support, as you can see here. So when students were writing, for example, up here, their body paragraph, as they were writing live during class, not only was I able to verbally give them personalized coaching, I was commenting on their writing as they were doing it to ensure that they understand in the moment how to think critically and elevate their writing as it's ongoing. I think that's another thing that elevates our boot camp from others. Students are not just listening to someone teach, they're implementing it live and they're receiving support live in addition to the asynchronous homework that they upload and receive personalized feedback on in between each session. And as you can see here, when students are drafting up their activities, it's interactive, it's supportive, and they're building a community. In fact, this group of students were working together on a collaborative piece, just a quick writing drill that we were doing to implement one of our evidence integration strategies that's taught in our boot camp. So students were analyzing the claim of whether there should be colonization allowed on the moon of all topics. And so this student came up with a creative team name of NASA Junior, and then they analyzed their evidence. And then I pushed them to think critically about how this could be used in an analysis. And I even gave them, like right here, some fill in the blank templates to help them take their analysis from where it currently is to what would be considered award winning. And so this is just one of the things that happens during class that will support students with their writing. And so that's what makes it so supportive. It's interactive. It's not something that they just do one time and they're done with. It's something that's constantly ongoing and they're always receiving support from students, or excuse me, they're always receiving support from their teacher as students are in this class. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well that we can promise from our boot camps is that students will guarantee growth by the time that the boot camp is over. Something as important as writing is not something that we leave to chance. So this isn't a here's a video, go watch this, go think about this. Students receive step-by-step scaffolding to make sure that it makes sense in their mind. It stacks logically. And when students walk away from a session, they're able to articulate in their own words what they've learned so that they can go and implement it in their writing. As I've shared earlier, students have structured feedback and rubrics that guide their writing. We structure our rubrics based on what's needed to win competitions, and students receive improvement week to week. And so we can quite literally look at a student's writing sample from session 1 to session 6, excuse me, and see how there's been a marked improvement from the very beginning to the very end. In fact, we've had students before who frankly hated writing. In their own words, they articulated that they hated to write. And while I think that's personally very sad as an English teacher myself, um, this structure of our boot camp still ensured that they made a significant amount of progress. In fact, one of the things that I'm most proud of is when students walk away from our boot camp, not knowing where to start, to winning a national contest like the Scholastic or the John Locke competition. So this boot camp structure is designed with a purpose in mind, and that purpose is to ensure that your student can tangibly see their growth in writing over time. Now, this is also another thing, especially in the summer months, that I want to make sure that you as parents and students understand is that the time requirement of this is minimum, but the results are maximum. Writing is hard, and I want to acknowledge that. If you are right now struggling with your writing and you're confused with how to even begin, that's not something that happens overnight, but it's something that we can help fix overnight. This boot camp removes the friction that a lot of people feel beyond their writing, behind their writing. Students are given elite prompts and starting points. So for students who aren't quite sure how to start, as you saw in the example document that I just pulled up, I give students models and templates that they can follow that are award-winning in and of themselves, and they customize it to their unique writing ideas. In fact, we have multiple example essays that we analyze during class so students understand what good writing even looks like. In fact, we know that sometimes students don't know how they should write because they've never seen what good writing looks like themselves. And we want to make sure that students see that, and we offer that and provide that throughout the entire course of the boot camp. The other thing that sometimes students will struggle with is they don't ask for feedback and they don't ask for help, but they don't have to because we give that constantly. As you saw during our personalized homework portal or our live coaching during class, students are constantly receiving ideas for ways that they can make their writing better in a non-judgmental, positive, future-focused way. The feedback that we offer to students is designed to make sure that no matter what comes next, they can implement that into their writing and make it even better. But here's the thing with the time commitment, though. All of this is possible within just 1.5 focused hours a week. With students who are writing their homework uploads, the prompts that we provide to students is not very long. All it takes for students to do this is a few hours after the session is over, upload it to the portal, and receive that personalized feedback from one of our world-class instructors. And so when students are uploading something to our portal that's based on the skills that they learned during class, they're able to see their feedback in real time return to them that they can then edit and let their teacher look at it again during class even. So this isn't a crazy commitment of 10 or 20 hours a week or an all-day summer camp. It is a 1 hour session with about an hour and a half of focused work outside of class to literally change a student's writing life. And then these are just some of the testimonials that we have received from students who just completed some of our boot camps. Students who improved creative writing beyond what they learned in their school. As you can see here, they've interacted very well during this class with others, not just students, but with their teachers. They walk away as the student did, knowing that they write much better and that they feel like that they can review their skills constantly, so that all the strategies that they learn that we know will tangibly improve their writing won't be forgotten. And above all, students have fun in our class. Students who are enjoying the learning and writing process will end up producing better results than students who are miserable in their writing process. So when students are joining our boot camp, not only are they receiving world-class instruction, they're receiving a community of peers and of a teacher who's upbeat and positive and ready to support them. And that's what sets some of our boot camps apart. It's not a dry lecture, it's an interactive, hands-on, engaging course that students can take and implement into their own writing. And above all else, the bottom line of our elevated College Ninja writing boot camps is that students know, or students who know how to think clearly and write powerfully are the ones that become leaders and professionals into the future. Not only are they winning competitions, they're becoming more well-rounded people. And that's something that is hard to replicate, and I think is better than anything else out there. Students don't need a writing background to join some of our writing boot camps. They just need the willingness to level up. And I know that every student is capable. One of my unyielding beliefs as a teacher, as a boot camp instructor, in fact, as a principal fellow here in North Carolina who is becoming a school leader, is that students can learn. Every student can learn, and every student can grow. And if I didn't believe that, then I wouldn't be doing this. And I know that your students can as well. And it would be the honor of a lifetime to support them in this work. I'm very passionate about the work that I've done. I've done this for several years now since I earned my master's back in 2020. And every year that I do it, the more passionate about it I become. And so if your students are willing to do this, we're willing to work with them. And we're so excited to offer this opportunity to them. So at this point, with about 8 minutes left of our Zoom session, I wanted to open the floor for any questions that you guys have. Hopefully, you've thought of some now from the beginning of our session, and then I'm sure Anne has some logistical details to share about the boot camp sign up and things like that. But I would love to answer any questions that you guys have now. First, about analytical writing, creative writing, pieces that you're working on. Let me hear some of your ideas. If you have questions about the boot camps, let me know that as well. But the floor is yours now. Just unmute your microphone and share any question that you have.
All right. I'm just using Chinese to introduce this camp a little bit. And of course, there's any questions you can do in Chinese, English, or you can put your questions here. 所以我们这个老师的这个夏季的这个 boot camp，我们精英先生 boot camp，其实这已经是最后一期了哈。那个时间是这样，我给大家稍微说一下。第一个是，其实它分两组，第一个是6到7年级，其实 writing 5年级也是可以的，这是一个我们讲说低年级组。低年级组也是2个部分，第一个是学术写作，就是分析写作，就是analytical writing。这个以及是竞赛写作，也就是我们的创意写作creative writing 这个2个部分。那我们的开课时间是这样子在我们希望新学生，如果你不知道如果你刚刚开始你的这个，我们是建议新学员从分析写作1和竞赛写作1开始。的确，老师这里的写作都已经是提高写作了这是针对美国学生的。美国学生也就是你在学校里已经学习的写作。这是用来提升你写作的部分这是这样的班级。所以我们的时间是这样子的，有7月27号这一班和8月10号这一班，但我们的分析写作的200就只有7月20号这一班，所以大家可以看一下时间，有一些的时间是我们7月20号开始的。那我们的报名的链接，其实如果是分析写作的话，就是 CollegeNinja-AI 杠AW，然后这个创意写作的话就是杠 CW 这是6到7年级的学生。如果你是这个，也可以是小一点的学生。下面一个是我们的那个8到10年级的学生，因为8到10年级的学生这里其实跟这个6到7年级类似，唯一的就是增加了一个400的课程，因为这是给一些已经有作品的，要参加这个各类竞赛的，我们有一个 CW 400的。如果你刚开始，我们是建议你从分析写作AW 100和 CW 100开始这里的时间点大家可以看一下。同时呢，我们也会在群里做分享。
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, in fact, the slide that you see on Anne's screen right now is a great example of this. Now, if your high school student is someone who already has a foundation in writing, then I would encourage them to consider our Analytical Writing 200 course. for grades 8 through 10. And even if your student is a little bit older, so like say grade 11 or 12, analytical writing is still something that would benefit them. We also offer our college essay boot camp if they want to begin preparations for their college essays. But
All right.
yes,
Yeah,
it's
actually, I have the slides pulled up. This is for grade 11 to 12. It's
yeah.
actually you are tuned to. It's actually taught by Hunter.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So the direct answer to your question is yes, we do. And if they're interested in analytical writing and they have that foundation, analytical writing 200 um, will be great for that. And then Jenny, I see your question. Your first question about students being in courses with different teachers. So what I will share with you is that our students will experience the same curriculum that is offered across the entire course. So even if there is a different teacher, there might be minor tweaks that the teacher has made, but the curriculum itself is not. So one example might be that a teacher prefers to begin their sessions with maybe a warm-up writing prompt that's based off the previous homework, whereas another teacher might have students analyze a quote first that they can use in their writing. So there's minor variations, but that structure is the exact same. And then grade 8 students starting with the level 2 course, I think that that would totally work if you're a grade 8 student is someone who has a foundation in writing. Um, if your grade 8 student is someone who struggles with crafting claims, or if they maybe struggle with thesis statements and evidence integration, then the 100 level course might work for them. But if they have a foundation in writing, then they could start with the analytical writing 200 course. Of course, you're always welcome to send me a writing sample of your student in grade 8, and I can certainly use that as a metric to recommend one or the other. But regardless, I'm sure that they will have a great experience and a great curriculum, but we can certainly look at the individual level options and help you make a determination there. Yeah. But I do want to offer you, okay, yeah, perfect. That was what I was going to say. If your student is traveling or they have an event going on during the course of the boot camps and they need to miss a class, each class is recorded live and sent directly to the students, and they're able to watch any class that they missed. In fact, if a student attended it and they just want to review the course again, they could still rewatch that. Every student receives a recording, and of course, they receive the personalized feedback when they upload their work to the homework portal. But yes, there is absolutely a replay, and I would encourage you to consider that if you have like a scheduling conflict and they need to miss a session or two, they can still definitely be successful in our boot camps, even if they have to miss a session or two.
All righty. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hunter, to join us at the event. And I hope if there are any questions, you can join the WeChat groups and we'll address that